Right, there you have it, the live broadcast there by the governor of Jigawa State, Umar Namadi there, flagging off an empowerment program for farmers there in the state, talking about good governance and demonstration of commitment to that. That's a typical example, especially as we mark a significant day talking about Nigeria's 25 years of unbroken democracy. Our democratic journey has been described as one that has been enduring, but of course we're still standing tall and counting years. Welcome to another phase of democracy at 25, a special broadcast brought to you by the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I'm Ruth Aguele, and earlier you saw my colleague Fisayo, with his guests analyzing the issues, where we saw the beautiful parade there by the president at the Eagle Square, actually, where we saw parade there, displayed to commemorate the day, and a very significant ceremony, or should I say ritual, that must happen on Democracy Day. We have a Studio B, actually, where my colleague, Benny Adams, of course, I'll be connecting with him. He has a guest there, Professor Abiodun Adeni, a political commentator and analyst. We'll definitely connect with him in a very short time. But of course, let's reflect let's refresh our minds rather on what has been happening all day. It's been a long day and we're still on it. That's what we are here for as the leading broadcast nation, broadcast television in the nation, talking about the NTA. Of course, you saw the broadcast by the president early hours of today, where he called for commitment, by leaders, inclusivity for a transformative nation, talking about Nigeria. This is a time, we should not, take up the hammers and be hitting on the challenges, but look at solutions and forge ahead as a nation, as one people in unity of purpose. We'd like to bring you a report now. Part of the people who have demonstrated resilience, commitment, talking about our nationalists, people who have demonstrated that Nigeria cannot, go down irrespective of the odds we've been seeing. We'll bring you a special interview right now by former head of state, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, and just following that behind will be another special interview by Emmanuel Nwanyawu, an elder statesman. We'll get to see that right away, so let's see it.
I think since I handed over, I can say there has been, on the presidential level, there has been about 3 or 4 elections. And on the gubernatorial elections also, there are some off-season selection that has taken place. Let me say, Nigerians have come to realize that democracy is the best system of government as being practiced world over. So far, so good. Any democracy is a continuous process, and this is what we are seeing in Nigeria. Well, my advice to Nigerians, as much as possible, elections have been are being conducted. It is not far-fetched. Both the umpires and the participants and Nigerians need to try to see how they can better the system. For the electorates, they should ensure that they do not sell their votes, because if they sell their votes, they cannot really hold people accountable for their actions. 2, the politicians should, as much as possible, when they gain offices and they become either senators, members of the National Assembly, or they should not make promises that they cannot fulfill. Because when they make promises, people definitely ask them for those promises. And if they do not fulfill the promises, that erodes confidence between the electorate and the politicians. So as much as possible, when the politicians assume office, I repeat again, there must be equity and justice. Once you become a governor, a senator, a member of the parliament, whether somebody has elected you or not, now it has become your responsibility.
Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And in fact, in my own opinion, and I think in the opinion of many people, is the best type of government. And we, Igbos, actually are by nature Republicans. Republicanism and democracy go together. That means people's opinion are sought before anything. Like, I'm in this position now as a leader. I'm a leader, I'm conscious of the fact that I represent Igbo people. And I work with NEC, National Executive Committee of Igbo, elected by all the states of Igbo land. Also, there is even a spiritual body called Imobi. Imobi is a spiritual body which take final decision. Igbos are Republicans. Igbos are Democrats. So democracy is the best. In 1999, we started this journey. And we had a lot of hope on this journey. Mark you, even in independence, Nigeria opted for democracy. And I must congratulate our founding fathers. Our founding fathers appropriated some of the policies that made for a successful democratic leadership. British government, Britain was the colonial master. They left a legacy to us. They left a legacy of honesty, of integrity, of truth. And you can see that the founding fathers of this country, they all had this character. They were honest. They were very honest. The type of corruption we see today was not there. But as time, after the military interregnum, the military takeover in 1966 completely disrupted the whole situation. And then thereafter we have military government, which was more or less a dictatorship. And that is not what we bargained for on independence. From there now, we have reached a point today when we have seen we have difficulty. I start wondering, how can we solve this problem? It's a multifaceted problem. It's a very serious problem. First of all, every effort must be made to restructure the country so that the whole blames, the whole burden is not coming to one place, federal government. Today, everything comes to federal government. But if Nigeria is properly restructured, we have to determine who will be the federating unit. Once it is structured, then it means that people now will who can now carry the blames to other places, not federal government. Instead of everything who blame federal government, we need the restructuring. It was some years ago when John Wodo was the President General, he had the Oka Declaration. In fact, I was the chairman of that declaration, where we emphatically said that we want this country to be restructured. Tinubu is the president today. But now we have decided to give support to the government. But I'm going to call on our people to give support to enable him, Because his success is our success. His failure is our failure.
Indeed, there you have it, the elder statesman there, Emmanuel Iwanyanwu, there, the President General of Ohanese Indibo, talking about the unity of purpose. And of course, you had the President's broadcast when he said we should continue to keep the fire burning of our democracy. And you can't talk about June 12th without the man who, who is a symbol of our democratic struggle, the man who has left an enduring legacy. 31 years on, we're still counting. Well, we have his product. One of his sons actually here with us in the studio, and we feel highly privileged to have him here with us. Abdul Abiola, President and co-founder, MK Abiola Center for Youth and Sports Development, Africa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I watched your speech yesterday during the youth symposium, very impressive, and I picked something you said. You said democracy is not a destination, it's a journey. Yeah. It was quite insightful just watching you. And sometimes I just wonder, when you see the whole nation, celebrating your father, talking about his legacies that we're still reliving, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I'm extremely humbled.
Okay.
I'm extremely humbled. I thank Allah every day that I have parents who were instructive and pivotal towards this democratic journey we're on. And for me, I think it's you don't get to pick your parents, so
Yes.
it's a blessing.
It is a blessing. And how old were you then?
Depending on which parent you're talking about, but my mom, I think I was about 7 going on 8, and my dad, I think it was about 9 going on 10.
I'm talking about the 1993 June 12th.
Oh, the 1993. Oh, in 1993, I was about 6 years old.
Okay, so I was not even among the number. You remember when King Ibe was asking who was being,
You didn't raise your hand.
No, I wasn't up to 10, but I'm not going to say. All right, let's connect to our Studio B, where Professor Adeniyi Abiodun is already there with my colleague, Benny Adams. Benny, so sorry, you've been waiting with your guest. I'm talking to Prof now, Benny, not you. Prof, thank you for your patience. We'd like to connect with you now, Benny.
Like you said, like you rightly observed, we've been here, we've been waiting, and we are going to take off from where we left off on the conversation with Professor Abiodun. Meanwhile, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is also the Dean of Postgraduate School-based University here in Abuja. Good to have you here again.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, Prof, we're talking about the achievements made, 25 years in the life of a nation's democracy. It's no small time. Yes, you've mentioned it's a journey. It's a journey, and that journey is not a marathon. Let's liken our democracy to a garden. Would you say this garden has been well tended by diligent hands to get us to where we are today? Yes, we are celebrating the efforts being made to build this democracy, to make it watered. Yes, there are challenges, but today, yes, while we're celebrating the successes, we're also looking at challenges to guide us moving forward.
Okay, I like the analogy of a garden, It's an anecdote that can be appropriate, but we know what a garden is. It's not something that falls from the sky, usually. You imagine it as a place that should be beautiful, and of course, if you want to make it beautiful, you also have to make it sustainable. And to make it sustainable, you need so many things. You need somebody tending to it. You need to mow the lawn as often as possible. You need water. Sometimes the elements, might also come banging on it.
every day you attend to it, as the case could be. Then, of course, if you imagine democracy in that light, democracy is not something that you think you construct on in a day, and of course you do not tend to it. Earlier on, I was trying to use the element of structure and agency. The structure is the democracy itself. The agency are the humans, that are supposed to manage it. And how do we manage it? We manage it through our temperament, through our activities, through processes that are ingrained in it, processes that have been outlined in history, the electioneering process, inclusion process, how well are the dividers, the various sections in the society integrated into it. For instance, in our own case, we still talk about limitations in terms of gender inclusion, Then what about the electioneering process itself? It is still fraught with some imperfections, some kind of many ills that we can associate with our election. Voter apathy. You talk about voter intimidation, ballot box snatching. Yes, we know. We have also tried, to include, to increase the effects or the impact of technology in the process, but we still have some downsides. Then what about resources? Do we have enough? Then what about, the value that we attach to it? Are we value driven? What value motivates us? Is it just about instant gratification? The money we get today at the expense of our future? Then what consideration do we give, for those who were elected into office? Are we concerned about them? Do we think about people who are actually competent enough, or people who just have the means, to bar our consciences? Elements that are integral to the definition of the content and character of democracy. We still have limitations in those areas. But remember what I said earlier, that it is not, you cannot construct a proper democracy in the way of having a good garden, with a magic bullet. It takes process. It is processual. And of course,
are we on the right path? Are we making
we're not doing badly.
Are we gaining traction?
We're not doing badly. If you look at the American democracy, we cited it earlier, more than 2 centuries old, they are still struggling. It's not the best in the world in terms of rating. If you're looking at rating, you go to Scandinavia, Nordic countries, the best democracies in terms of stability, inclusion, sustainability, etc., etc. But they are still trying. America still remains the bastion of democracy. So 25 years down the line, unbroken democracy, yes, we still have miles to cover, but it is still worth celebrating. But what are the things that we need to do? We identify them every day. They keep recurring every day, but when I mean every day, maybe every 4 years or every election cycle. What do we need to do? We need to be mindful of these downsides and improve on them. But because if after every 4 years we still see a recurrence of things that we regretted 4 years back, 4 years before, then of course it brings frustration and we begin to lose hope. But overall, we do know that there's no best way to proceed other than to to remain democratic. Now, I heard your colleague on the other side, talking to Abiola there,
yes.
And of course, I remember with fond memories, how, with great nostalgia, how we covered the release of the June 1993 presidential election in Area 10 there. We're all an army of reporters, from all over the country,
Those
from all over the
on
world.
the field.
Yes, when we're on the field. We're in Area 10 there, sitting on the pavement, watching how the results were being released on the chalkboard those days, right? And we're seeing how Humphrey was going in and out of the building, supervising the process. How Tony Iradia, who was the spokesman as he then was coming out to tell us that there's no problem, the results are coming out. Meanwhile, we already know what the outcome was across the country. We're only waiting for its aggregation at the center in Abuja, for us to report back to our head offices. So we're enthusiastic that finally democracy was coming to stay.
But that was a long wait.
That was a long wait. Then eventually we just waited in vain. You can imagine the frustration, the disappointment, the irritation that we felt as young professionals. Many of us in our late 20s, in our early 30s then. And of course, some years down the line, things even deteriorated when we had another military dictatorship. Then, of course, we were gratified to have one, that delivered democracy in Abisalam Abubakar, whose voice we just heard now.
Yeah.
So you can see a consistent movement, a struggle to deliver democracy. Now, having gone through those experiences, so you do not want to go back to the days of days of trials, when there were hardly some kind of freedom.
Exactly.
When we were living in fear in Abuja. Those days, at some point in Abuja, if I'm conversing with you, I'll be mindful of who was behind me, who was eavesdropping, because you do not know what you say and you will get apprehended.
Exactly my point earlier. These sacrifices are being made. Heroes of democracy are being celebrated today. You made an instance of the 1993 incident, how you were on the field, you followed the processes. From then to now, a whole lot has been achieved, but we are not where we should be yet. Now, what do we actually need? Is it some institutional strengthening? How do we get it done practically? Apart from, yes, the usual talk shops we hear from conferences, every election cycle, we need to hear, okay, we have learned from previous elections. This is the end of an era. For you to succeed, you need to start planning for the next, at that particular point in time. These plannings come and go. But at the end of the day, yes, there are improvements, but not as desired. What is that thing? What's that missing link that needs to be clicked for us to just get it?
This is not rocket science.
It is. It's a gradual process.
Yeah, I agree with you. But your question is appropriate. But I'm just saying that it is not rocket science to do the right thing, to put the right piece in the jigsaw and get everything fitted. One thing that is key to it is leadership. And when I'm talking about leadership, I'm not just talking about presidential leadership. I'm also talking about leadership at all levels, particularly leadership that is responsible for the management of the election. Now, leadership is very key in any system, in the strengthening of any institution. Institutions that grow do not grow because you wish them to grow. It grows because you match your pronouncement with your actions. When people see that you are matching your actions, you are walking your talk, that you are saying this and doing the same thing, not saying this and doing another thing, trust will be engendered, confidence will be built, and they will follow. They will be with you in tow. They will follow your direction. But of course, when they see a deviation from what they think, from what you are saying, they will simply believe that you are paying lip service to your pronouncement, and what will come out at the end of the day will be tepid service, and you see people doing what they just want to do. Oftentimes, in the build-up to election, you see commendable sensitization, appropriate voter education, salutary, godly pronouncements on all sides. But when the process for the event begins in the pre-election period, of course you see sensitization, like I said, but in the election period, you now see deviation. You see things that will make you sad, and of course you know that, of course, what we've been doing is just pretenses. We're just pretending. You still see ballot snatching, deliberate disenfranchisement, violence, people just desiring to win at all costs, people just thinking that they have to be die-harded about the quest for power. And of course, eventually in the post-election period, you also see people tribunalizing, resorting to the courts, in a situation where, they obviously couldn't even have won. And again, you also see complicities of other institutions. You see people who shouldn't even have won in the first instance, who came maybe second or third, emerging as victors. So it just beggars belief, and you are troubled, you fear for the system, because something is not real, there's some dishonesty somewhere. So these things are ingrained in people's minds, and they see, suspicion all over the place. Anxiety. Okay, so, but all these can be very, very disturbing. All these can be the limitations. But even at that, Benny, the point I'm making is that we can still find lemonade, from sour grapes. It can happen, yeah.
Sure.
We can see
and they are much more visible every day.
Yeah, sometimes we cannot lose hope. We'll just keep trying, because we know how 25 years after it has benefited us. And the benefit we're getting, I made the point earlier, it's not in infrastructure, it's not in facility, it's not in utility, because you can get it, in any kind of system that is even undemocratic.
Yeah.
Dictators are often they try to ingratiate themselves to the people by being concerned about infrastructure, utilities, and all of that. Theocratic states that are not necessarily democratic, some of them are the most developed in the world in terms of infrastructure and utilities.
So we're seeing the likes of China.
That's fine. But the greater advantage that democracy offers is inclusion, integration, representation, involving all sections that are divided. And of course, making you free to express yourself, for you to realize your objective as a human being, as envisioned, envisaged for you by the Almighty God, the Creator. Because all human beings are supposed to be born free. But that freedom is much more enshrined in the ethos of democracy, which is why it's a privileged system of government anywhere in the world. And which is why even in states that are not necessarily democratic, they have semblances of democracy. You have the Politburo, the Communist Party in some of these states, and of course, even in developed theocratic states, when I mean developed, I mean that are prosperous, you see consultation. You do not see the Emir of Dubai or the leader of the ruler of Dubai taking decision alone. You still see consultation. He has people that he consults with.
That gives that participatory
That
feeling.
participatory, you see the semblances of it. So it speaks volume about how governance, state administration, prioritize networking, consultation in administration, as the case could be.
Okay, Prof. Ruth over there in the other studio with Abiola, she's itching to ask you a question. Ruth,
Okay.
if you can connect at this point, Prof is listening.
With Benny there, my colleague, I was just wondering, going by what the president said in his broadcast, that we've been able to achieve a true and enduring democratic passage, which he described as hard and dangerous. Now, how can leaders, recommit themselves if we want a society that promotes inclusivity, transparency, and of course, accountability?
And we are not gods. Leaders are human, and of course sometimes they also need help. That's why sometimes we say some levels of citizenry are slightly lethargic. Sometimes they have to be reminded of their obligations, of the need for them to fulfill, to deliver on their promise, their mandates. And we're not saying that people should go to the street to start protests. That's not the idea. They are legitimate means of advocacy. Remind them, call them to account, put their feet to fire in peaceful ways. So if we are consistent in doing that, and of course sometimes you also want to look away from instant gratification, where leaders are sometimes tempted to ingratitude, to buy our consciences in the immediate circumstances through gifts, cash gifts. They will think we start shouting, carry on, Baba, Rankadede, and all those kind of things. They are not normal things that we should encourage in a system, because leaders are there. If we keep expecting this, they will keep doing it, and there will not be change. So citizens have to also play their part in helping leaders to deliver on their mandate and the things that we expect of them. Above all, is to also say that they have to be God-fearing. They have to keep to the oath that they pledge in the first instance. But those things are personal. Not everybody have that strong willpower to be concerned about leaving legacies. But the few of them that have it, we need to encourage them. And those that don't have it, we need citizens to motivate them, to galvanize them towards the goals that they set out to achieve in the first instance.
Okay, Prof, talking about gratification, where we are seeing an upward trend in talking about politics being a money-centered so much. The president in his broadcast also mentioned economic democracy, apart from political democracy, economic democracy. How far have we gone to empower the average Nigerian? I believe if the average Nigerian is empowered enough, he has something doing, it doesn't depend on the stipends. You have the right to make choices based on belief, based on conviction that if I cast my ballot, if I vote for this particular leader, he's going to go there and represent me. He's going to go there and do what is the needful. Where should we go from here?
You're talking about the bigger picture of our political economy, and we can't discuss it in isolation. We're a developing country, resources are limited, our population is exploding, we're grappling with problems of insecurity, kidnapping, etc. All these things are problems that are troubling us. We're not necessarily, in some circumstances you may say we are wealthy, we are rich, because we have oil, but of course there's so much imbalance in the sense that we're just monocultural. We're dependent on oil, which is why our economy is very volatile, very fragile. And sometimes when there's problem in the oil sector, we're in difficulty, and of course we're hugely indebted. Maybe you can say, okay, profligacy is also part of it, extravagance is also part of it, the absence of prudence, lack of transparency, accountability, like Ruth mentioned. So all these problems also conflict. And of course, do not forget mismanagement. Do not forget also limitations on the part of sections of our leaders to manage resources well. Of course, corruption is still a problem. We can't deny that. Self-aggrandizement, the fact that some of these resources that are supposed to be plowed back, plowed into public good, are being appropriated, for personal, family, community gains rather than the gains of the general public. And some of these monies, when they are taken, they are kept, they are hidden, and they are serving no economic purposes that will probably have create some multipliers so that there will be more jobs, people can have options, alternatives, that you mentioned. All these things, can happen in a painstaking process. Painstaking in the sense that President mentioned, he made an announcement the other day, about releasing some money to help farmers, to help people in different sectors, small and medium scale owners. Let's assume that those monies were released. Were they released appropriately to the right people? For those people that the monies were released to, did they see the money as something that they should reinvest? Not necessarily something that they will use to go and buy a new car, build a new house, marry new wives, or marry more wives, travel abroad, squander. Were the monies used appropriately? Remembering that if they are used appropriately for the purposes that they were meant in the first instance, it will add up to the economy. One person doing the right thing, another person joining the first person to do the right thing, and a third person joining the second person to do the right thing will create a system where we will add up to the whole and grow the system. So it's not something that we will just expect God to come down from heaven and help us to do. He has already given us all the weapons, the atmosphere, the intellect to do it. But when we deviate on account of preference for luxury, rather than investing in the future through appropriate action. Yes, policies are often appropriate, but implementation is often our bane.
So much to talk.
All right, Professor Abiodun Adeni there with my colleague Benny, just, looking at issues around the Democracy Day, which we're marking 25 years of unbroken democracy. Earlier, I told you we have a guest here, Abdul Abiola, the president and co-founder, MK Abiola Center for Youth and Sports Development Africa. We already started a conversation, but we have another guest joined us, the former Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Tallen. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you, Ruth.
How does it feel, recounting and looking back all these years? I'll get back to you, Abdul, but let's hear from the women's perspective. So we're going to be marrying this conversation. The youth and the women, of course, these are two key critical areas that has raised a lot of concern, especially in our democratic journey. So, Honorable, I can still call you former Honorable Minister. Okay, so when you want to look back at the journey, looking at the patriarchal nature of our political system, a lot of talks, advocacy, sensitization, but would you say 25 years of this unbroken democracy, the struggle for women, how has it been? Are we pulling up? Are we at the top? Are we in the middle of the ladder?
Thank you very much,
We're
Ruth.
still at the bottom of the pyramid.
Very much. Thank you, Ruth, and happy democracy to all Nigerians. I want to, first of all, thank the Almighty God for seeing us through these 25 years
Yeah.
of unbroken democracy. There's quite a lot of gains and a lot of losses. I've been part of the 25 years unbroken democracy.
Yeah.
I was part of the at the formative stage, the founding fathers of PDP that formed the government under the able leadership of President Obasanjo in 1999. And I served under him as a Minister of State, Science and Technology. The struggle was not easy, and that's why I want to quickly congratulate and celebrate our founding fathers, those that struggled and paid their lives during the independence struggle and the struggle to ensure that we have a lasting and enduring democracy. The struggle has been quite tough, and women have been in the center stage of this struggle. I remember during the struggle, when during the annulment of the SDP, the Abiola saga, I contested under the SDP as a chairman of my local government. That was the first time in the history of Plateau and Nasarawa that a woman featured, came out and was accepted to contest as chairman. It was a beautiful, exciting campaign. We came back from the remote areas at about 9:30, and as we walked in, we saw Abacha reading. People were crying, some were rolling. It was such a... But I remained calm in my spirit. And out of all this campaign, I must tell you, women have been the engine of the struggle in politics in Nigeria. Every leader since 1999, I must tell you that this struggle, the campaign that brought President Obasanjo to office, women were the heart of the campaign. The same thing happened during late Yaradua. The same thing happened during when Goodluck Jonathan continued. The same thing happened during Buhari, and the same thing happened during our present administration under the able leadership of Asiwaju Tinubu. We must appreciate the fact that youth and women are the engine of democracy.
I like
They
the
come
fact,
out, yes.
I like the fact you just married it,
Yeah.
the youth and the women.
And women, these two, they are the heart. When you are talking about campaign, if you are talking about commitment, if you are talking about resilience, even during the rain, the hottest sun, women will remain in the queue. And they will make sure their children are with them. The women go together with the youths. We are the mothers. In my state, I remember, during the President Buhari's election, a woman was in labor, but because she believed so much in casting her vote, she refused to go back. She had the baby in the queue.
Wow.
So she was quickly taken and rushed to the hospital. And lo and behold, it was a boy. So the father named him Buhari. There are so many instances, not just in my state, so many instances where you see the resilience of women. But when it comes back to giving the dividends of democracy to women, women are not remembered. The youths are not remembered.
You know, that is the aspect we're going to delve into, and where the struggle for women is on one hand, the struggle, you know, to pull up the youths on another hand. For you, Abdul, you are someone who have shown resilience over the years, you know, your doggedness. You are a voice to reckon with. And going by what Madam has just said, if you want to put that for the youths, I remember something you said back then. You said Nigeria rather should build, to consolidate and build capacity, in youths. Now, youths shouldn't just, be part of election processes, but they should also be given key opportunities, to participate and be given key positions in governance. What do you make out of all of this? Looking back at our journey, 25-year-old child, of course, is a grown adult.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. But I also like to take this time to congratulate you for your time as a minister of this country. Your service and your duty to Nigerian people is something that we are all proud of, and you can also be proud of yourself. Yes, you made it clear that we have a role to play, and it's important that we understand that role very carefully. You see, our role in a democratic setting is of two sides. So there's the leadership, and then there's the followership. What we need to do, and I've been campaigning for this so many times. I say to my friends all the time, how do we talk to ourselves? We are the ones who can speak to our own brothers and sisters. Like I said, we own the table. What we now need to do is, first of all, educate ourselves individually, but more or less, as I'm looking at it, I think collectively as well. But I can see something that is different from subsequent governments. Subsequent governments paid lip service to the issue of youth. I think at the time we had a youth minister that was almost 75 or 60 or something. It was sending a mixed message to the youth. So they were saying, oh, we can't even identify with the person that represents us. Today is something totally different. Our youth minister is not only a young lady who is doing wonderful things, and I said ladies, so women actually being acknowledged. And I think I heard yesterday that she's actually the first female youth minister, and I think she's doing a wonderful job. Not to mention the Minister for Youth State, who is a very good friend of mine one day, and he's doing a great job as well. So I think that this government, for the betterment of this country, is actually trying to engage with us. And it's also imperative from us, from the other side of the coin, like I said, to also try to see how we can also engage with government. So I'm encouraging my brothers and sisters across the board, no matter where you are or what you might be going through right now, which I know might be a little bit difficult, to see and to try to key into what the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has in store for us. How would you know what he has in store? You should try to look into the Ministry of Youth. They have a website. You can reach out to them as well. They have people you can call to talk to. And then, like I said, for me as well, you can reach out to me, and I can also try to see how I can also support you. But we have to also be understanding that we are our own brothers' keepers. If we don't take charge of this nation, and if we're not direct or deliberate with our move, you see, nation building is not something that you do and go to sleep. It's something that you keep working at.
Consistency.
It's consistent. You have to be deliberate with this action. It cannot be something that we find in the past. And I think we have to look back. And I think today is something significant, because today it gives us a good opportunity to look back.
Yeah.
And then reflect on that history. And I think Mr. President did a wonderful job in showing us, or even discussing, what had happened in the past, acknowledging the situation that we are in today. So that it shows that this is a listening government. This is a responsive government, and hopefully, in due course, like he said, there's a new minimum wage going to be introduced. This would also encourage more Nigerians to be active and to be more. To be more hopeful. I think the slogan is renewed hope.
Well, yes.
And we're trying to restore that hope. And I would say to Mr. President that, yes, I heard you, and I'm willing to work with you towards getting to that promised land. Like I said, this government works, and it's all of Nigeria that will benefit from it. And it fails, and we are all going to suffer from it. So let's work towards making this government work. I also want to say something that, when I'm in the APC, so when we run for elections, everybody's saying APC, APC, APC. But once the president became the president, he stopped being the APC president. He became Nigeria's
Everybody's president.
So
indeed.
in that case, I would have loved to see Mr. President invite some of those who were part of that June 12th, the 2023 elections, and see how, some of, because they're all statesmen. and they're
Minister
all
of
citizens.
FCT, of course, is from another party.
Exactly, and you can see where he is. So
all right,
you can incorporate other people as well.
Okay, Abdul, I know you're very passionate, when we're talking issues like this, but I'd like to connect to my colleague there, Benny. Benny is still with Prof, and I'm hearing that he has to let Prof go. Benny, please take the baton.
In this whole process, I don't know, Prof, what would be your view from the experiences of them polling talent there, being a key participant from SDP back in the days to this moment, and what should be the actual role of women in all of this?
Yeah, well, it's very important for us to continue to play up the fact of inclusion. And when we're talking about inclusion, we're talking about including all the sections of the society, all the sectors of the society, both the ones that are biological, organic, or the ones that are non-biological, inorganic.
We've gone to the classroom.
No, I'm sorry. In terms of class, gender is very, very important. Gender is the main yardstick by which we define a salutary democracy. In the case of Honorable Pauline Tallinn, she came into politics maybe on account of her own conviction, on account of her own motivation, on account of her own determination maybe to add something to the social system. But beyond that, how many of them, how many people, how many women probably have her own kind of courage, her own kind of background, which is why we also need institutional support in the form of affirmative action. Affirmative action, are the kind of action that you take to encourage people who are vulnerable, who are disadvantaged, to be included into the social system, social processes. You can say, okay, maybe in the next form of government that we want to constitute, we need 30% women, 40% women inclusion, 50%, and you stick at that, through regulation, through pronouncement, and you work towards enforcing it as well. You can say, okay, affirmative action again, you need so and so number of percentage as representative, as people who represent the youth population, because they are disadvantaged, they are vulnerable, they can be pushed aside, by people who are already in the mainstream, who are established, who are moneyed, who have the resources. Every system needs some level of affirmative action. And of course, that's the only one way in which we can deal with a patriarchal culture, a culture that is ingrained, that is ordinarily think that the man, maybe we shouldn't go into the details. Of course, we know what patriarchy means. And of course, this is a kind of culture that is easily going away in civilized society.
Yeah.
So if it is thinning down, if it is going away, then why not in our own system as well? And of course, if you look at the youths, there's a youth bulge now. Youths are the most vibrant, the most productive in sections of the world, particularly in the business sector. Many youths, young ones, they have emerged as billionaires, very successful business people, setting the pace in many sectors. You want to talk about entertainment, you want to talk about technology, communications technology, and of course fintech. Youths are setting the pace. So if they can do well in many of these sectors, why not in politics?
Talking about the politics,
yeah.
Would you also want that affirmative action? Though in the last administration we had the not too young to run. How has that fared? How can we build on that going forward?
We had not too young to run. It was good. It was a regulation, a law. But to what extent will you say that we implement it? First, it speaks to the fact that we have salutary laws you can comment, but we mentioned it earlier that the problem is always execution. How many youths actually made it to power? Many of them are capable, they have the energy, but they are often discouraged. Do not forget, our culture is also against youth. In most cases, people relate with people on account of age. We are very hierarchical. We differ more to the ancients, thinking that because you are older than me, your wisdom is much more
wisdom.
Yeah, and of course, allow me to go. Your time will come. So those kind of putative assumptions affect. So we sometimes transport this into the political arena, which shouldn't actually be the case. So Yes, we know that we need levels of encouragement. Youths, those ones who we consider as vulnerable, should not also rest on their oars. We need more togetherness, more coming together, more decision making, and the making of pronouncement in groups rather than as individuals. Form yourself into groups, belong to appropriate political parties, make your voice heard, because most of the time power is not served a la carte. You have to be seen to be agitative, even though we are talking about affirmative action. If you are not pushful, if you are reluctant, redundant, people will ride over you, remembering that the inner feeling of every man, the average person, is to dominate, to take advantage of the other. And that's why we have rules and regulation. While we expect the rules and regulation to be protective, policy directions to be protective, we also have to be mindful of our own efforts. The effort came through the example of Madam Pauline Talin, and it has come through the example of some youths who have also contested and became victorious. We need more of those people taking action, but while we're saying that, we also need the government coming to be supportive of the vulnerable, not just women and youth, but also the vulnerable, the physically challenged, those who don't have the resources, those who are stuck in the villages, who cannot come to the urban centers, and many other people who we can class as disadvantaged, as the case could be.
Okay, Paul, before I let you go, one last one. The present administration has embarked on several reforms from the very first day of coming into office, talking about fiscal reforms, we have monetary reforms, efforts at growing the economy to build up from past administrations, from independence to this point. What's your take on the way we are going?
Yeah, from the background of the president, you probably may not be able to raise too many questions, because he's been in business, he's been a private sector person, and key to private sector, the key philosophy of the private sector is market forces, allowing market processes to forces to determine processes and procedures. That's why he came. He liberalized so many sectors. Remove subsidy on oil, remove on what again? Subsidy on naira, foreign currency, and of course gradually removing electricity, allowing market forces. But yes, nice effort, but of course we've seen limitations. The limitations is that, one limitation is that our system is not yet strong enough to support it. And we also know that market forces sometimes need some tweaking, to protect the weak, those who are economically weak, those who are the lower rung of the economic ladder. Those who are powerful, the mega rich may not feel it, but the middle class can actually be exterminated in the process. And if the middle class are getting exterminated, what will you imagine of those who are the completely lower rung? Which is why mechanisms have to be put in place, palliatives, like they say, have to be put in place, to cushion the effects on those at the lower rung. We also know, again, that there are palliatives, but what about implementation, Benny? To what extent have we seen the realization of this palliative? That's why you see people complaining, because they've not seen the effects, And again, it comes back to maybe people trying to circumvent process, to be smart about it, to cash in on the process and help themselves, put their hands in the cookie jar and prevent the populace from benefiting from it, which is really unfortunate, which is why governance can be very difficult and tricky, very, very complex, but we have to keep trying.
Thank you very much, Prof. Like you said, it's not a marathon. It's a race. It's a journey that we need to take one step at a point as we expect the impact. Thank you very much, Professor Abiodun Adeni, for sharing your thoughts with us on Democracy Day. Ruth?
My pleasure.
It's over to you.
Thank you very much, Benny, for that insightful conversation with Prof. there. Indeed, it is a journey we are all part of, and we'll continue to push. There's no destination. We just keep pushing, even for generations unborn. Before I continue conversation with my guest, I'd like to bring you some reports. These are our next report. Of course, the role of civil society in democratic governance cannot be ignored. And over the years, civil societies have continued to play the role of watchdogs of societal progress, demanding accountability from government by their advocacies, for transparency, electoral integrity, and good governance. Now, these organizations have taken the task of championing democracy in Nigeria. Ekene Ndulwe takes a look at how far CSOs have come in playing this role.
Since the restoration of democracy in Nigeria in 1999, the country's democratic journey has recorded various challenges, including electoral disputes and violence, ethnic and religious tensions, inequality, as well as security concerns. Despite these obstacles, Nigeria's democracy has remained steady, with successive governments transiting peacefully through elections. The role of civil society organizations in maintaining this stability by holding government officials accountable, advocating electoral reforms, and promoting transparency has been well documented. Some of the civil society organizations say, though a lot still needs to be done, they are happy with some of the progressive reforms achieved in the Fourth Republic through their advocacy. Top on the list are the Freedom of Information Act, Petroleum Industry Act, and Not Too Young to Run Act.
We led the march and the campaign for the introduction of the Not Too Young to Run bill, which is the age reduction bill. They now have and ensure that young people are on the ballot to contribute their own quota in Nigeria's very young and emerging democracy.
Freedom of Information Act that we have, that was passed in 2011, that was quite significant to helping us to address a lot of opacity within the governance system, even though it has also helped to address a few areas around bureaucracy, information, secrecy acts and all that.
CSOs are also playing a very strong role in advocacy. They are trying to hold the governments accountable. They are trying to see that the governments are doing the right things.
They have also actively engaged in electoral reform efforts by advocating measures that will enhance transparency, accountability, and inclusivity in the electoral process.
The 2022 Electoral Act that was signed by Mr. President, or the former president, was driven by civil society that introduced technology, which is the BVAS, that allows for accreditation and also upload of the results. This is first of its kind in the history of Nigeria.
You also have CSOs like Yaga and also Action Aid Nigeria who are working steadily to ensure that citizens are participating in elections itself, fighting for local governance, ensuring that we move from a bottom to a top approach in ensuring that citizens are part and parcel of the electoral processes.
And most importantly, we need to intensify advocacy and sensitization for citizens to understand that they occupy the most important office. Because without the citizens, you won't have the president, you won't have those elected.
The civil society organizations believe democracy has come to stay in Nigeria and are confident that a review of the Fiscal Responsibility Act will ensure proper management of state funds for greater benefits of the people.
Indeed, the role of CSOs cannot be ignored, especially when they have to put governance on a scale. Honorable Talon, advocacy for women participation has been one, CSOs have also involved in. If we want to look at the picture, the narrative for Nigeria, despite efforts, despite advocacy and all of that, we saw 10% out of 15,000 candidates who participated in 2023 elections. And I was just checking the numbers online from 1999 to 2023. Only 157 women have participated, for National Assembly, our parliament. In the whole 469 compared to 2,657 men within the period. It's quite unfortunate. Let's look at the practical steps women can begin to take.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's unfortunate that the political class itself, all the political parties, I am APC, and I'm proud that I'm an APC member, but I must say that both the APC and all the other political parties are not being fair to women.
Because you've been there.
I've been there, I've seen it all. But I must commend the effort of Mr. President, particularly for the young ones that he has carried along in various appointments, ministers, special advisors. That is highly commendable. But for women, we are not yet there. We are commending his efforts. We are hoping. We are waiting with expectant faith and looking at what our very dear First Lady, distinguished Senator Remi Tinubu is doing. That is also commendable because she is supporting the renewed hope by organizing programs, the renewed
her
hope
own
agenda,
initiative.
her own
Right,
initiative
yeah.
to support what Mr. President is doing. Mr. President, we know he has always been a gender-sensitive president, and that was what we lay on the table for women to support him. He showed it even from the home front by supporting his wife to go to the Senate 3 times. That is highly commendable. It's not every man that does that.
Yeah.
We know he's a true Democrat. But we want to see more of it because of the role women played in the campaign, in the process of democracy right from its inception. The problem, the steps we need to take is to get more women at the party level. We need to have more women in the directorate of the party. And that has been a tough one. A committee was put in place, chaired by the present Minister of Education, Professor Tahir. We worked very well with him. He did his very best to amend the party constitution to ensure that more women are involved in the party structure. The party did, the committee did their best, and they were able to at least get 1 or 2 additional women in the National Working Committee. It used to be just the National Woman Leader out of 30-something. You can imagine. It's like a drop in the sea. What would one voice do in such a big gathering of over 30 men? So now we have a woman leader and a deputy woman leader. Then we have with the social welfare officer, but just 3. That is not good enough.
Because
We
it
need women
starts
at
from
the-
the primaries.
It starts, yes. If you don't have women in the party directorate that will start the process from the primary right to. At the primary, this thing, they knock us off. And once you don't emerge as a candidate, that's the end of it. The struggle for democracy. I listened very carefully to Mr. President's beautiful speech today. I commend him. But I must add that so many women offered their lives during and they must be remembered and celebrated too. We have Ayo Obe, we have Joe Oke, we have Ene Obi, we have Obi Ezekwe Lizie, we have Hawa Mustafa, we have Ma Odi, we have Gloria Kilanko, we have Comfort Idika, we have Professor Ajila, we have Aisha Iman, we have Senator Chris Anyao, we have Abiola Afolabi, we have Professor Hawa of the then University of Maiduguri. The list is endless. These are women who offered their lives during the June 12th, and they must also be remembered. I like the words Abdul said that he is ready to support the young people. Government is doing its best, but government cannot do it all. But the dividends of democracy to Nigerians is much, and we must celebrate it. However, we could have done better. Even the developed countries are still struggling.
Okay.
Democracy is a process.
Indeed.
And we are moving forward, and there is hope. We believe that Mr. President will surely get more women and youths into governance. For the First Lady, she has shown remarkable zeal and enthusiasm to carry women along, to ensure that women are supported. Like every home a garden. The competition that is going on already is giving hope for so many hopes.
Indeed, Honorable Talen, and Hope 1993,
Yes.
Renewed Hope
Renewed Hope
2024. Okay, so
with that, I believe, again, a powerful statement during the Thanksgiving, just a day before the celebration. Our distinguished First Lady clearly said, and everybody was touched by that statement, where she said her family is blessed. Everybody knows who Ahmed Tinubu is in Nigeria. He has made it, he's a successful businessman, he didn't come to make money. She has said it, and we believe them, and we are taking them for their word.
All right, Honorable Talen, we'll pick up with that. And another practical aspect we'll also like to explore is the youths, which I'm sure Abdul is already in that dimension. Abdul, if you look at the youth's participation in politics, it's a whole lot, especially for political parties. But I'll come to you. Let's bring in this report now that the governing All Progressives Congress is taking the nation's democracy through another round of political experiment after retaining power on May 29, 2023. In this special report, our political correspondent, Abubakar Akwanga, examines some phases and developments that have changed the political landscape since 2014. Yeah. Let's see that.
Turned elected.
The history began in 1998 by the last man to write his name in gold while in military uniform and to insist that leadership must be by the ballot and not by the use of gun. And that is the General Abdulsalami Abubakar transition program from military to civil rule.
I, Olusegun Obasanjo, do solemnly swear.
16 years after an evolutionary democracy emerged, dwarfing the PDP-controlled platform that has dominated the nation's political space since the return of democracy in 1999. But the year 2015 was a game changer as major opposition parties regrouped and formed a merger to evict a landlord who still has a constitutional right to enjoy but ran him out of office through a massive vote count.
Buhari means a new Nigeria. Buhari means that he will run a government that respects every Nigerian.
It's about a decade of breaking the jinx, and the governing All Progressives Congress had produced 6 national chairmen, both on regular and interim basis, until the incumbent leadership of the Ganduje-led National Working Committee, who took charge of the party affairs in 2023, when his predecessor, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, took a bow.
Nigerians, first of all, knew that the democracy is improving, the electoral process was also improving. Otherwise, usually you see a very huge gap. But this time the contest was very fast. And at the end of the day, we had victory.
Our economy should be strengthened. Our governance system should be strengthened. The institutions should be strengthened and stronger than the individuals. And once that is done, we are good to go.
As a governing party, growing with democracy has remained non-negotiable, and these most times come with price that will either deepen unity or build resilience for confronting emerging challenges.
The ruling party has lost in many grounds and has also won in many grounds. And there were high-profile locations where the ruling party would have been very happy to continue to hold on to, where it is even an incumbent, where it lost grounds in those places. For the courts to look the ruling party in the eye and deliver a very fair judgment against it is a sign that the courts have come of age, and our courts are maturing now. And it means that there's a very good future for our democracy.
25th anniversary of unstoppable democracy. What are some of the gains and setbacks, and any hope in sight?
Another 8 years of debate will still be the same APC government. But yes, APC government, but different administration. Like the president will say, the other one was Buhari, but I am Bola Ahmed, and I am Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
The same we're experiencing in Plateau at the moment, even in the face of an order of the court, flagrant disregard, And then in Rivers, the brigandage there going on, and demolition and of the House of Assembly building, and all in an effort to further an interest.
Nigerians should feel happy that we have been able to weather the storm of coup d'etats, and democracy is at the top in this country. So it is worth celebrating, of course.
For those who are yet to come to terms with June 12 as Democracy Day, it is a day in history that resonates the credibility and authenticates the mandate of a man whose name remains bright on the marble, the MKO Abiola, and made possible by a leader who in history was the first to run the APC presidential mandate on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, the PMB, as it were, the slogan.
All right, there you have it, and we'll continue to weather the storm enduring the whole processes. But Abdul, I was going to ask you this question, going by what Honorable Talon has raised concerns, in the aspect of the women, where they have been sidelined or rather excluded, especially at the political party level, which we see also happen to the youths. Now, youths, of course, were expecting to take practical steps, but also political parties are encouraged, or rather are urged, to also put in their support for the youths. We have the Not Too Young to Run bill, which everybody's talking about. But have the youths really shown that they are not too young to run for elective offices?
Thank you for that question. We already spoke about us having to educate ourselves, be prepared for that opportunity. But then, you give us a bill, Not Too Young to Run, and then you make the price for the ticket, the form, like so astronomically high.
That's where the political parties.
That's what I mean is, it's like I don't know, it's like maybe a slip of hand where, like I give you something and then I take it from your back pocket without you knowing. So it seems like, they just wanted, they offered something to us, and we didn't look at the other angle, which is we have to have a political party. So that gives me something else I want to talk about. We're 80%, like this, we're 60% of the population, so we're the majority as a youth, including women, of course, because you're our mothers and you're also a youth. Don't say you're not a youth, madam. So,
she's young in heart.
That's right. She's young in everything. Heart though. What I want to say is, what is to say that the previous speaker said something about young people are doing wonderful things, making a lot of money. A young person can form a party. We can come up with a party of our own and then change the rules. Since the rules in the traditional parties are not working, it's just what I'm just trying to say is, with the right knowledge and education, you are never really confined into any fixed position. Yeah. So once we had the Not Young to Run vote, the bill, the next thing I would have expected was one of these people who were proponents for this bill would have said, what, now let's do a party. And then as they do a party, they say, okay, what, in the normal parties, there's one person who pays for everybody. But in this party, because we want to promote democratic values, everybody has to pay to 100 naira. First of all, the 100 naira could be a token. But you have to understand the symbolism of that 100 naira. Somebody taking 100 naira out of his own pocket with everything he's going through and putting it into the till, saying, I want to be part of this party. And that 100 naira, what does it do? It guarantees you a vote. So with everything that we do as a party, you already know what we stand for, because we have to already make that clear. And I think it's only right that you let people know what they're getting into before they get into it. So I will let you know what my plans are. If I were to do a party, I will let you know, this is what I believe in, this is where I want us to go. And once you do that, and then you get them to buy in, because they put in 100 naira, that is their buy-in. Any kind of votes, we don't necessarily need to be in every local government. We can create an app. Technology can be used to reduce our cost. There's so many things that we as young people can do without even our fathers knowing. If I send my friend a text message on WhatsApp, my father, before he can open, if my father was alive, to open WhatsApp might be an issue for him. He might have to call his PA to do it for him. So there's so many ways we can communicate and help ourselves without necessarily spending that kind of money. And once we have brought down this whole, they've made a mountain out of a molehill. They've made this so unattainable. So this now is you can only reach it if you have certain, certain benefits. So what I'm just trying to suggest is, first of all, it's imperative that we first educate ourselves. I can't say much more about this. And in talking about what my lady panelist was saying, women have enough agency in this government than any other person. You are our mothers, you're our sisters, you're our brothers, you're basically wives. I don't think, especially for Nigerian men, and you know how much we like women. What I suggest sometimes, because when I hear this, that, affirmative action, it should give us 33%. The women are
Please don't
mostly,
reduce 2%, it's 35%.
35%. I think I think if you were to look at maybe one of these honorable members, a male who is in office, and look at the people who voted for him, I bet you'll find so many women on that list and maybe a few men. What am I telling you? That you yourselves are your own agency. All you have to do is discuss it, because I think and my sister was very prolific in trying to discuss about women issues and just addressing women in leadership. And I think it's important for women to be in leadership because you have a different perspective of things and you think about things differently. Me, I'm ready to run in guns blazing. You might be tempered and because of your nurturing nature. So I really believe that everybody should be on the table. Our fathers have a role to play. Obviously advisory. They don't have as much energy. We should provide, facilities for them to be able to communicate to the future of tomorrow, which is obviously us. But I don't know when that tomorrow is going to come. But all I'm just suggesting is, when we fight for something, we shouldn't just rest that we've won. I can remember it was a celebration, not too young to run, Allah to share, God has done it, And yeah, God did it because we got the bill passed. But you didn't follow up. And it's always in at the last moment is when they can really pull a fast one on you. So what you need to do is, once we have something like this, what we should start thinking about, let's look towards this 2027 election. If we're not having this conversation independently inside our parties and they're not listening, then we should come together. Like I said, we have brothers, but I'm APC, so I'm just saying in general, if there are people who are looking in this direction. But then again, if this democracy is opened up and the more people are involved, it can only strengthen us. And I think that's where I need to just confirm and say, look, inclusion is really the only thing that democracy has over any other type of form of government. Because like I said, in America, there was once upon a time when the black people could only had like one half of a vote. Now they have a whole vote. Now they became president. It takes time, but over time it gets better. And that is what we need to see. So you said that you don't know when this promised land, it is actually closer than we think, but we have to be deliberate with our movement.
It's a struggle that you don't just give up.
No.
You keep pushing. It took us how many years, to get our independence, and it took the nation how many years again to get to democracy. So it's a struggle. It's a continuous process.
Yeah.
We'll continue with that. We played you APC report earlier. Let's also see the opposition side. And only political parties can nominate and sponsor candidates for various elective positions. Now, these places, the political parties play as major stakeholders in democratic process. Timothy Yusuf in this report takes us through the 25 years of the nation's uninterrupted democratic journey and the place of the People's Democratic Party within this period.
Democratically, Nigeria is momentarily taking its rightful position within the Committee of Nations, but still at the age of 25, we are still teaching, But democratically, we can say we are doing very well. We have done very well, and it's been a very good, smooth ride.
On 29th May 2024, Nigerian democracy attains 25 years. The Fourth Republic commenced on 29th of May 1999 with 3 political parties: the People's Democratic Party, PDP,
All People's Party APP, and Alliance for Democracy AD. As Nigerians expressed confidence in multi-party democracy, the number of political parties increased to 93 as at 6th February 2020, when INEC deregistered 74 political parties, which did not win at least a legislative seat in the 2019 general election, nor had a national secretariat in Abuja, which brought the number of political parties today to 19, including a court order that INEC should register the youth party.
For 16 years, yes, the PDP had sway as the president. Majority of the states were run by them, but they were not visionary enough to make sure that whatever established protocols or whatever established policies that was going to be put on the Nigerian system will transform our economy and revolutionize our agricultural and other sectors of our economy. And we were concentrating still on a monoproduct economy when all we depend on is our crude oil. So, and we're in the APC era for 9 years now. The Buhari administration did their best with the current administration. It's for them to look at where the past 16 years, where the government went wrong.
25 years is indeed an amazing journey for our democracy as a country and as a people. And for me, I would say our major achievement is the fact that we have had uninterrupted governance, from one administration to another. There have been continuity in government in terms of proper handing over, no interruption from military, or there have been collaboration between the military and the civilians.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, won every presidential election between 1999 and 2011 and was until the 2015 elections the governing party in the Fourth Republic, although sometimes amid a few controversial electoral circumstances. The leadership of the party is, however, confident that it will, in the next election in 2027, return to its old winning ways with lessons learned.
We must also, as a matter of necessity, bring the concerns of Nigerians to the forefront of the political discourse. We must also understand that Nigerians are in love with our party, and they see this party as their common hope. They are anxiously looking up to us to bring succor and relief.
We don't want to disparage ourselves because we are aware there are some marauders hiding somewhere trying to factionalize our party and take one person to go and do coalition. We are not going to allow that as governors. We are very responsible and we are very credible. We will make sure that we resolve all the issues and unify the party for maximum efficiency and, of course, success in the next election.
How possible to get back to power at the national level remains a fundamental question in the minds of many, judging from ongoing internal challenges confronting the party.
I will continue to work for Mr. President to realize his lead hope agenda. I'm very clear to everybody. I'm not here for any party. I'm here for the interests of Nigeria and for the unity of this country. I'm still a PDP member. I've never hidden my position.
Immediate resignation of Umar Iliyu Damagu as acting national chairman of PDP for anti-party activities and allow North Central produce the acting chairman as clearly stated in the PDP constitution, or watch us reconsider our membership of the party in the months ahead if the right thing is not done. Or removal of Umar Damagu by the neck of the party with further sanctions against him for anti-party activities.
The next National Executive Committee meeting of the PDP is fixed for August this year. The survival of the party going forward is dependent on the outcome of the meeting, which is the highest decision-making organ of the party. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Well, looking at the other side of the divide, the intrigues will always be there if you want to look at the two parties, talking about APC and PDP, and going by what the president said on a battalion, he said a nation can hold elections without being democratic, but a nation cannot be truly democratic without holding elections. And Political parties, of course, have crucial roles to play in all of this. Abdul was talking about forming a youth party, even though he didn't come out clear to say that. But the intrigues, that has always played out for women, the aspect of funding, and you talked about them being excluded at the primaries and all of that. I'm being told we're supposed to join our correspondent, Kingsley Amajiri. I don't know if we have a connection. They're all fantastic. I'll come back to you, Honorable Talon. Let me quickly connect to my colleague in Port Harcourt. Kingsley, you want to tell us what's the mood there in Port Harcourt? It's June 12th, reminiscing on that enduring democratic journey we've all been in.
All right, we'd like to welcome you to Port Harcourt for the Nigerians who are lovers of democracy in this part of the world. June 12th is a day that brings to mind the essence of democracy. For them, we've had an interaction with quite a number of Nigerians in this part of the country. June 12th, to many, is a day to reflect on Nigeria's journey to democracy after a couple of military interruptions since independence. And for these 25 years that we've had unbroken democracy, quite a number of persons have been reflecting on the achievements and even the challenges the nation have gone through. Of course, to many, the worst democracy is better than the, whatever you might call it, the best military form of government. And to some, there have been a number of achievements that have been recorded in the last 25 years. For here in Rivers State, of course, today, there is no formal event marking June 12th in Port Harcourt, but the state government on this part, the wife of the state government, used today's occasion to reach out to about 20 women as part of reflections of the gains of democracy, encouraging them to go into agriculture. About 20 women in the state were given 500,000 naira each to encourage them to go into agriculture, in line with the vision of the wife of the president. Now, when you look at June 12th, many have also rekindled, reflected on those who paid the sacrifice, the supreme sacrifice that brought Nigeria to where we are today. Here with me is one of the public affairs analyst, Pius Duko. Would like to also get his perspective as a Nigerian, what June 12 means to him. Mr. Duko, I know you are a lover of democracy, and how would you appraise Nigeria's journey to democracy, the last 25 years of uninterrupted democratic governance? Let's get your thoughts, sir.
Well, very quickly, I think 25 years uninterrupted democracy have been very fascinating and fantastic. We have made enormous gains, of which is incontrovertible. You cannot doubt or you cannot begin to belittle the so much gain that we have gained. And let me mention, for example, one is the human rights, the ability for Nigerians to get their fundamental human rights. Because under democracy, it is where you can get the human rights, the way to purchase, get your rights freely at large. Under the military, you cannot get that. And let me tell you, the government have also established what we call the Human Rights Commission, which ordinarily in the military days, you cannot get Human Rights Commission. And that also snowballed into political emancipation, where we can have political participation. A lot of people can belong to different political parties, and that gives a space for people to participate in governance. Unlike before, under the military dictatorship, you cannot get such a right for you to be a member of a political party, either internal or external. So that we have done very tremendously in that. Let me also move a bit further to say that we have developed over time for 25 years. What am I talking about? Under the issue of the economic development in Africa, whether we like it or not, we have the largest market. And when I say largest market, I'm talking about the largest economy. Because by 200 million population, we are, likely to get a lot of market within the African sub-region. And when you get a larger market, that is how the turnover will begin to come out. So in the economic terms, we have done well, very tremendous.
All right, there from Port Harcourt, our correspondent Kingsley Amadure engaging, one of the residents there in Port Harcourt, sharing his views on what he thinks about our democracy. And it's good, knowing that the state government is also looking at the welfare of the people. We heard that the women were empowered, Honorable Talen. I'm sure you were smiling when you heard that. Empowering women, not just in politics, but other aspects, goes a long way to build that woman's capacity to be bold, to come out and say, okay, I want to also be a policy maker. I want to have my space on the table, which brings me to the issue. I was going to ask you a question before we connected. Financing. Well, aside financing now, Nigeria is a signatory to different treaties that encourages women's participation in politics, and implementation has been on the drag. What are the women saying, in that aspect? Give us a sneak peek into that.
Thank you very much, Ruth. As you rightly said, empowerment is key.
Yeah.
And when you empower the woman, you are empowering the family, you are empowering the community, you are empowering the society and the nation at large. Because empowering a woman has a multiplier effect. The woman is a mother, she will take care of her children's school fees, she will support the family, the family will feed well, she will support her husband and everybody within the family. So, if government really want to get it right, we must give more attention to empowering of women. The budget of the Ministry of Women Affairs is nothing to write home. It's the least compared to any ministry. We are not just talking about budget. We have different ministries that should work or support women issues. Women in, take for example, Ministry of Agriculture. A lot of women go into farming.
Yes.
And there is a special budget in every ministry for women.
I'm a prospective farmer too.
That's it. So every woman is a prospective farmer.
Yeah.
And they go into farming to support the family. But the support is not coming because what is meant to be given to the women are not being given to them. So all the gender desk officers have not been properly given the necessary attention by the ministries. Agriculture, women in education, women in investment, every ministry has a gender desk. But the problem is implementation. I remember the immediate past president made a profound statement that our budget has to be gender responsive. Yes, that was what was then. He made that statement during the presentation of the budget. We were very, very excited. It was profound. The UN, everybody was happy. But our problem is implementation. The key thing is more attention should be given to empower the woman. From the national to the state to the local government. States and local government must give attention to women at the grassroots. Women farmers at the local government, at the state level, must be empowered. If you empower the woman, if you give loans to women, women are known to always pay back their loans. Out of 100 women that you give out loan, 99 will pay back.
Speaking from experience as a former minister.
We've seen that during the Better Life, during all the loans we give out to women, women will always pay back. So why can't we improve on that? Why can't intensify that? I'm sure our First Lady is looking at that as she's whispering to Mr. President. Having seen that he is gender, Mr. President himself is gender sensitive and focused, I believe all that we need to do for our leaders is to pray for them. I want to appeal to Nigerians. We are going through a very difficult time. Times are tough. The market forces is not in favor of anyone, particularly the less the lower class. Nigeria has virtually lost out the middle class. It's the upper and the lower class. And that's why there is need for the affirmative action. We've seen what is happening in other countries. Other African countries have gone far ahead of us. Nigerians, we like to go for seminars to Rwanda, we want to go to Senegal, and we see what they're doing. Their leadership believe, and they've given more opportunities to women, and that's why the countries are moving. Nigeria is blessed with everything. We have the best brains, we have everything that it takes to be the best, not just in Africa, but the world. But what is missing is the presence of women, more women at the decision table.
Okay.
The National Assembly is an eyesore. So the affirmative action has to come in. I know the efforts the present Minister of Labor, Minister of State Labor has been doing to ensure that at least the affirmative action is passed. But I'm happy and I can see hope in the leadership of the National Assembly. The National Assembly and Mr. President are the last hope for democracy to really function. It has to be participatory. The National Assembly, under the able leadership of the Senate President, Fabio, and my brother,
the Speaker,
Abbas, I am confident that the remaining bills that have not been passed, I had a discussion with him recently and he assured me I could see the passion in him and the hope that these bills, under the able leadership of Mr. President this time around, if these bills are passed, we are making a tremendous progress, and that will lead us to change the narrative by having more women at the national, state, and local government assemblies. That will bring a change in the bills, and the impact of the dividends of democracy will be better felt when we have more women at the decision table.
I like your optimism, and when you mentioned the legislature, of course, they have strategic role to play. You mentioned Rwanda earlier. 60% of parliamentarians. Oh, it has increased.
It has increased.
Oh, great.
The legislature, the executives, 66, the legislature, about 65, the judiciary, 55.
That is because the 2003 Rwanda Constitution provides 30% quota for women's participation. You know,
why can't Nigeria do that?
Yes, it's
we have all that it takes to do that.
Indeed.
So I pray that God will touch the hearts of our political class, our political parties, and our leadership. I'm hopeful, and under the renewed hope, I believe that God will use our dear president to make a difference and to make history happen, that it will be Uhuru for women.
Indeed, and I also want to see Uhuru for the youths.
Sure.
Abdul, some time back you talked about servicing the economy, looking at empowerment now for the youths, through youthful democracy innovations. You were talking about innovative means, that youths are readily embracing. Narrow it down to how youths can also make that change in governance through empowerment. You also mentioned mentorship, by the elder statesmen to pull these young ones up. Because when you started this conversation, you said the youths are the engine room of every nation. How can we leverage on that, manpower into human capital development? Let the youths also be on the table.
Yeah, I totally agree that the youth need to be on the table. And if not for anything, it's just because the leadership at the time understand that when the youth are in the table, you're basically handing over the baton, or you're just handing over the torch. The idea for, and I think Mr. President is actually doing a very good job about inclusion of youth. We talked about this SSAs. We talk about Sheyi, his son, very active in this government. is our First Lady. She's also has a lot of young people who are in her part of her team. So I see some of the signs. What I am actually suggesting is, if we, as like the future leaders of today of this country, can first of all discuss with our people. I can't give you what I don't have. That's the most important thing. Once I have something, then I can now say, okay, come, let's work together to do this. But the most important thing for me, and what has always put me through, is if I ever come across anybody who tells me they need something, no matter what it is, if I'm not able to do it, I try to find one of my friends who can. So what I do is I have a network of friends who we talk about different issues, talk about different ideas. And one of these things is trying to see how, even just between us, without even talking to government, between our own little network, how do we raise funds to help our own people? So there's some projects that we have lined up, hopefully before the end of the year. Just trying to give back in some way. I think it's very important that we all start to try to do that in our little way. And this is called, it's a solar panel kiosk. And a friend of mine is a close friend of mine who is actually doing this project. And I'm offering to buy about 3,600 and give 100 to each local government, or no, 100 to each state, because the 36 states. If I did each local government, we're talking 7,774. But which also I think that we could even do more, because Lagos State has 20 local governments, but we actually have LCDs as well. So I'm sure that there are other ways we can look at it, but I think it might actually be more effective if I can do each local government, at least for now. Identify people who maybe I want to do, maybe he wants to learn barbering, and just give him the tools he needs to be self-sustaining. There's a solar panel on top, so he has light. These are ideas that you're basically taking some of his own problems away from him, and this is something that he can use to build on. And I think during the elections, Shay actually did something along those lines, and those people actually did some testimonies, and they're saying that, look, with what they were able to do with this thing, that they wish that this would have come sooner, and they could have been more productive. So what I'm suggesting is that there are ways we can engage my brothers and sisters, because they're my brothers and sisters, we're about the same age. There are ways we can engage them. And in that engagement, we're going to see that we might think we're going this way, but they will show us that, no, this way. In America, I remember when I was in America, there were a bunch of kids who were caught for doing some illegal stuff with the computer. And they weren't sent to prison. They were actually encouraged to use that talent towards something else, so they now tie a group of guys to companies, and these guys
that's harnessing.
So it's not like, in Nigeria, it's, you want to do something. The first Nigerian is like, if you're not a doctor, police officer, military man, they're like statutory roles that we consider to be the ideal roles. And then, like Davido is doing great things, Burna Boy is doing great things. You see, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, we don't want to put anybody in any kind of confined spot. The world is a global village. People have a right to express themselves. And the best part of doing something you love, like what I'm doing now, I love it. Like, I love discussing with my people. I don't know. I think I take that from my father, because he could not just stop talking about Nigeria, and I can't stop talking about Nigeria. But we have to understand that we have to be deliberate in this movement for a better Nigeria.
Indeed, Abdul, and also the aspect of sports development, which you're also passionate about. But let's hear from an elder statesman and also former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi. He has some, words for us of encouragement. Let's see that.
Always be a significant day in my life, as I hope it will be in the life of this country. One thing which we tend to forget is that we didn't fight for independence. It was a negotiating process with the British, a conversation with the British. And to that extent, we saw it, if you like, it was like a football match between us and the British. When you compare what happened in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, then you will know what fighting for something is. People went to jail, people who were killed, leaders who suffered for the independence of those countries. So June 12 had become, the struggle over June 12, if in a way has replaced or did replace that struggle for independence. And I'm glad that I was one of those who God gave an opportunity to be part of, if you like, the comrades who fought for June 12. But again, let us get something clear. What we fought for is complex. Yes, we fought for democracy in the sense that we fought to get rid of the soldiers, the military. That's only one aspect of it. And we succeeded in that. We got rid of the military. 1999, we got the civilians back. So what really we've been celebrating is civilian rule. Because democracy involves more than civilian rule. Democracy involves a lot, development. You fight for, the role of women, entrenching women and giving them what they deserve. Fighting for education. UNESCO has given us what percentage of our budget we should put in education. Have we achieved that? No. Look at how many children are supposed to be out of school. Infrastructural development. That is part of democracy. That is something that we will have to continue to press for. The implication of this is that my generation will achieve its own level. Your generation will pick up from there. So, in a way, when your generation accuses my generation, is this what you people fought for? Every generation fights for its own level. And then another generation picks over from there. We cannot have development achieved 100%. Then governance will stop. So to that extent, I think that we did well, my generation, that we did well. And it's your generation to pick up from where we left off.
Indeed, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi there, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and elder statesman. Honorable Talen, he said he has left, their generation have left off, and it is up to us, or on your generation, Abdul's generation, to pick up from where we left off. You're a woman who has played different role. You've demonstrated your visionary leadership and impactful leadership, of course. You've served in different capacities, sports, youth, health, you name it. How would you encourage other young women? How would you, serve as a mentor, as a guide to them?
Thank you very much. I am mentoring young women, and I'm encouraging them not to give up. Politics is a struggle. Nobody gives you power on a platter of gold. You must keep pushing, and you should never give up. I keep advising young women in politics. Humility is key in politics. You must be humble as a leader. You must identify with the low, the high, and the mighty. You must identify with your local community, because every politics is local. You must identify with your immediate community, be with them at good times and in bad times. Identify with them, know their problems, and find solutions to those problems. I'll give you an example. During the time before I started my political career as a councillor. Before I even became a councillor, when I was mobilizing women towards nation building, I happened to be the first woman to form the local government branch of the National Council of Women Societies in 1984. And that is the foundation, because local government, that is the government at the grassroots, where people feel government. And that's why I want to commend Mr. President, the efforts this government is doing to ensure the autonomy of the local governments. That is very, very important. If local governments are autonomous and their funds go direct to them, you will see a lot of development. States can supervise, state can see and monitor what they're doing and ensure that these funds are put into use. But let their funds go direct. You can make it competitive among the local governments. By the time we have governments at the grassroots being really functional, we will be able to curb urban migration. Everybody will be happy to go back to farming. Yes, we know the problems of security. Mr. President is doing his best, but we must also be on our knees to support government in prayers, to support our leaders in every area that we will be able to get out of the security problem. So, women should never give up. But the political class must support, and we must ensure affirmative action. Other countries across the world are doing it.
Yes.
Nigeria should not be an exception.
Indeed.
And I still want to say, under the renewed hope, I am hopeful that our bills that are still pending in the National Assembly will be passed. And when they are passed, that will be historic.
Indeed.
So,
Honorable Talen, I know you're a woman who is so passionate and you never give up. And you're still pushing and you continue to push.
Sure.
Abdul, let's hear your final thoughts, to youths. If you want to sum that up very briefly for us, what's your message, especially on this historic day?
To my brothers and sisters out there, happy Democracy Day. I actually really do believe that our the future is going to be brighter, and the only way we can guarantee that is by coming together and understanding really what the issues are. I always read. I'm always trying to educate myself about international matters, even local matters. But what I do want to let you know is that the power is actually vested in us. Democracy is actually power for the people, by the people. So it's us, even the people in leadership are also, they're also part of the people. So we shouldn't look at them as, not part of us. I think it should be one of those things where we try to encourage and we try to work together towards getting to that common goal. Like I said, APC, PDP, once the elections are over, it becomes Nigeria. And it's also important that we also understand that we also have agency in this the women have agency, we as the young ones have agency. When we see things are not going accordingly, it would be right if we can reach out to our elected officials. Now, we're only looking at Mr. President. Everybody's saying Mr. President. We have state governors, House of Representatives, the Senate, we have state legislators, and local governments as well. I understand that the Constitution does not really specify the role of local governments, or it doesn't really let you know exactly. I think it does specify the role of local governments, but it doesn't, it now gives them like a shared account with the states. What we want to see really is productivity, ingenuity, and innovation.
Indeed.
That is all I can say. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Abdul Abiola, President and co-founder, MK Abiola Center for Youth and Sports Development Africa. We want to thank you for this honor to be here in our studios. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work and continue to amplify your voice. We love it.
All right, anytime.
All right. Honorable Pauline Tallen, the former Minister of Women Affairs, thank you so much for your contributions and keep being that leading example to women out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to end, this session because we'll be back at 5. At the top of the hour, we'll be joining, the news studios. But I'd like to end with a quote by the president. He said, 25 years ago, we're faced with an untold gravity, whether to veer towards, a better destination or continue aimlessly, towards the fog of dictatorship. We made the right choice then, and we continue to make that choice till now. So let's keep the torch, the light of our democracy, let's